I think the biggest misconception is that a lot of people think that AI-enabled rollup is just a little bit better private equity rollup. AI-enabled rollup effectively is a tech company that just grows with kind of through acquisitions. But at heart, the AI-enabled rollup just reimagines and redesigns how the service is delivered to the end customer.
So thanks everyone for being here today. So today we're going to talk about one of the most interesting themes emerging in the serial acquisition ecosystem, which is AI-enabled rollups. So excited to have Ilia Drozdov here today with us, who is a co-founder and CEO of Dwelly, which is a UK-based property management rollup that recently raised $93 million, led by General Catalyst. So Ilia, thank you for being here today. So I want to kick off with a broader question, which is, what are some misconceptions that you're seeing, whether it's from the investor side or from the operator side, about AI-enabled rollups?
Yeah, Edwin, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and for hosting me. Really pleasure kind of to talk about AI-enabled rollups. And I think you guys are really forward thinking about that topic. I think the biggest misconception is that a lot of people think that AI-enabled rollup is just a little bit better private equity rollup, like P rollup with this kind of basically a little bit technology, a little bit AI on top of that. I think this is the biggest misconception because AI-enabled rollup effectively is a tech company that just grows with kind of through acquisitions, for whom kind of the go-to-market strategy is by basically buying companies. But at heart, the AI-enabled rollup just reimagines and redesigns how the service is delivered to the end customer. While in the private equity kind of rollup, it is rather kind of efficiency of scale and all that stuff, while kind of leveraging the main platform acquisitions you do. For AI-enabled rollup, you don't need a platform acquisition, for example. That is a direct result of the different nature of the business itself.
That's actually a really eloquent way to put it, because coming from a PE side, I think there's been a lot of skepticism about this AI roll up, and frankly, just kind of, hey, venture capital guys are trying to encroach on the private equity world. And I think there's a lot been like a discounting of like all the success that's been proven to date, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk about AI roll-ups with you, to talk about the real tangible examples of some of the successes that you're seeing. So that's great. So maybe for the benefit of the audience, would love to maybe just go rewind all the way back. So walk us through kind of your career. I know you had some kind of interesting paths to starting Dwelly, but let's just give us some context and how you ended up starting this.
Yeah, I think an important kind of note that by education, I'm an engineer, I'm a physicist, and I always was excited about like real world problems and like an opportunity to touch something, design systems like that are really operational in the real world. And I always wanted to be entrepreneur myself because my father was entrepreneur and I always wanted to be one. And after kind of couple unsuccessful attempts to build my own company, I realized that I probably need to actually learn how to build them. And by coincidence and by luck, I was kind of Uber was launching in my hometown, and I joined them as my kind of first job. Effectively, spent around 3 years at Uber, growing to the general manager, being one of the youngest GMs globally at the time, and then basically leaving Uber after Uber decided to merge business with local competitors. So my first M&A experience was back at Uber times, and I was leading basically the transition of my own team, which was kind of several hundreds of people, to the joint venture formed with kind of the local competitor. But personally, I decided that it's probably kind of end of chapter for me in Uber. Didn't want to kind of follow the next chapter because I always wanted to be entrepreneur, as I said. And we were thinking where to apply this kind of marketplace knowledge we got at Uber, and ended up after kind of a long brainstorming with my then co-founders in the letting space. Fundamentally amazing place to build a product first company with the marketplace dynamics, because supply is super fragmented, demand is super fragmented, no single operational intermediary. We decided that yeah, let's give it a go. Basically, let's try and let's apply our marketplace knowledge. We built the first company, we sold the first company, just a tech-enabled letting agency. We were growing organically, no M&A. 3.5 years there, 10,000 properties under management, sold in 2021. Moved to the UK. Still kind of in love with the property space because it is one of the biggest consumer spends, the lettings, right? Around 25 to like 30% country to country population lives in the rental home in the UK. For those people who rent the home, average kind of family budget is around like 30% of the family budget goes to the rent. So it's like a huge chunk of the consumer spend, a super important transaction. And relationships with tenants are like years long, with landlords are like decades long. So you can build really kind of product first company around that experience of renting and letting basically the property. And we knew that technology can elevate both level of service and efficiency of the business. We knew that already from the previous company we built. The only problem was, okay, how to overcome the growth challenge, because organic growth in my previous company was a big challenge. Landlords are very sticky, naturally sticky, and obviously a bit of a tech kind of buzzwords, but they kind of work with the same agent for like years and years. They usually change agency only between tenancies most of the time. And that's very kind of rare event. And we were thinking how to overcome that and figured out that actually you guys from the private equity world already have a playbook, which is called buy and build playbook. We're like, okay, sounds like an amazing go-to-market strategy for our technology company. And that's how we ended up buying the first business up north in the UK in Hull and launched Dwelly that way.
Yeah, super interesting. And by the way, I think for the benefit of the US audience, like lettings agency is like property management agencies. I'm curious,
Sorry to interrupt you. I think
yeah.
important kind of note that in the US, brokerage and property management usually separate kind of companies, separate streams. In the UK, it is provided kind of as a service under one roof because landlords are different by nature in the US and the UK. In the US, most of the landlords are big institutional landlords owning
Mhm.
a lot of properties. In the UK, most of the landlords own 1 to 2 units properties like flats or kind of small houses or whatever. So really private landlords, not institutional landlords, and they need full kind of service, white glove service. Okay, here is the key from my property. Please find a tenant, ensure compliance, collect rent, do the property management, and repeat once the tenant moves out. So it's a bit of a different kind of service provided here compared to the US.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful clarification. Um, so makes sense. So you guys ended up kind of pursuing this a roll-up strategy as a go-to-market kind of motion. But what about AI? Like, why did you think that AI was going to be a core element of Dwelly?
I think what we noticed kind of very early on, obviously, um, as kind of OpenAI launched the first public kind of popular versions of ChatGPT, that communication will definitely be disrupted by that technology, just a matter of time. And we were like, we had an aha moment basically, because in our space, in the letting space, in the property management space, most of what the agency is doing is communication. It is communication with tenants, it is
Mhm.
communication with landlords, it is communication with maintenance provider, with local authorities, etc., etc. Mostly via email, sometimes we have phone calls, and we're like, okay, a lot of that work can be actually significantly elevated with the leverage of AI, because AI can store all the context about all the clients, about everything, and can provide like really without a delay kind of a proper advice or kind of recommendation or just the next kind of step to demand from either kind of side with much kind of better quality than kind of human agent can do. While kind of human agents are kind of amazing at building relationships and like providing additional kind of value beyond just managing the administration kind of the process itself. And it was just like, okay, makes perfect sense. We have a go-to-market strategy, which is buy and build. We are building the tech company, kind of sort of inheriting the business model from the previous one. And now with the new technology, it actually completely kind of shifts the paradigm how the service can be delivered to the end customer.
I mean, I think kudos to you for recognizing that opportunity. One of the things that I did notice that was that I think you guys started in back in 2023 or 2023, 2024 timeframe, which as I think about kind of my AI usage back then, it was maybe like, hey, clean up my email, right?
Hmm.
I think AI has advanced a lot over the last, 12, 8,
Yeah.
24 months. So like, was your idea around I guess, incorporating AI into the Dwelly ecosystem, did that evolve over time, or did you kind of think from day one, AI is going to continue to improve, so we're going to kind of anchor our business model on that?
I would love to say that we've kind of predicted how tremendous the advancement in AI will be over the course of the next couple of years. We started research in 2023, so exactly kind of around ChatGPT, I think 3.5 was launched around those days. But we made the first acquisition April 2024, so just like 2 years, basically, exactly 2 years and 2 days from the first acquisition. And back then, we didn't think that AI will become kind of so powerful as it became just recently with new models with Opus 4.6 and like similar models. Uh, so we were building in an assumption that AI will be enhancing what kind of people are doing right now, making people more efficient, right? But in reality, I think right now we see that AI can actually help people to completely get rid of particular kind of administrative responsibilities and actually focus on building relationships, focusing on like how to do an extra mile actually for this particular landlord, saying like, okay, this landlord actually spends too much money on the maintenance. Let's figure out how either kind of to optimize that for this specific property, or maybe suggest that we need to sell this property and kind of buy another one with a high yield or like whatever, instead of just chasing contractors for the certificate, for the gas certificate. Right now, it can be kind of automated to a significant extent, and it's an amazing opportunity for actually people in the profession to step up and to start kind of being like really proud for what they're doing. Because the biggest kind of also problem with in the letting space, in the property management space, maybe US is different, but in the UK, letting agents and estate agents in principle are among top three least trusted professionals. That's insane, right? So kind of nobody believe like everybody asks like, why are we paying agents kind of that much? They're doing nothing and whatever. And all the tenants, all like a lot of landlords actually think that way. But when we got kind of deep into the business, when we acquired like more than 10 agencies already, I didn't see many, if at all, anyone who was not trying to genuinely deliver the best kind of service they can.
Mhm.
All the people in the space are good people who really work hard trying to actually provide the service for the clients, but those still, they are kind of among the least trusted professionals. But from the office, I see, no, actually, they're genuine people trying to do kind of good for the clients, but still the misconception is quite big. And I was like, why the gap is so big from what I see in the office and what I hear kind of from the public kind of recognition of that profession. And the biggest problem, from my opinion, is that due to regulation, quite kind of intense, due to just complex administrative kind of process of going through the kind of hundreds of tenant applicants to finally figuring out one that is accepted by the landlord, then referencing, then contracting, then all the property management. It's just a lot of nitty-gritty, like small details that you need to follow on, like and do, that you don't have time to actually kind of keep up with
Look
what's
up
important for
and
the landlord, basically. And you end up just being drawn into these kind of manual, simple tasks instead of really providing value for a client. That's why you are among least trusted professionals, but still really trying your best, doing your best to deliver the service. And I'm super excited about the change that can be brought to the industry.
yeah, we should totally talk about that. But before we get there, I mean, first of all, congrats on the 2 year anniversary. And then secondly, maybe one framework for people in the audience that are trying to pursue an AI roll-up strategy is to look at the list of least trusted professionals and just go from the top bottom. That's an interesting way. Yeah, why don't we talk about, maybe some of the kind of real examples of how AI is creating real operational impact inside Dwelly. So like, please give us concrete examples of this is used to be a task that was only done by humans, but now it's either done wholly by AI or with the help of AI, and therefore the result is X, Y, and Z. We'd love to maybe get a list of kind of examples like that.
Yeah, I think kind of there can be many, but let me know when I should stop. Let's start kind of with the first one, how the property is marketed. In a traditional agency model, agent in charge of letting particular property, finding the tenant for particular property, they are putting the listing on the classified, and that is the difference between US and kind of UK, Europe as well. US is like more MLS-driven kind of market in the property space. In the UK and broader kind of in Europe, it's classified-driven. So we have three portals like Zillow basically, and Zillow is the go-to place for the tenant. All the tenants go to Zillow, and there is no kind of tenant-side agent at all. So agents were putting the listing on the kind of classified Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market, three main ones in the UK. And then they were receiving phone calls or email inquiries from prospective tenants. They were answering them either by phone or by email, trying to kind of get the tenant through the questionnaire, sometimes just live on the phone, writing down the details. Yes, okay, in the CRM, but still manually. And on and on and on and on. Then scheduling viewings and organizing these viewings, running these viewings to find basically the tenant. That model is quite expensive in itself because every transaction comes at a cost, right? To pick up the phone and to spend 10 minutes with a client, you have to pay salary for an agent, so it comes at a cost. Viewing comes at a cost because kind of agent goes there every time. And then the motivation effectively becomes, okay, we find the first good enough tenant, we stop picking up the phone, we stop accepting kind of additional inquiries, we stop doing the viewings, we just find the best kind of the first tenant actually who offers, present to the landlord is happy, fine. This is kind of how incentives are aligned if every transaction comes at a cost, right? But with AI, processing of any inbound inquiry is effectively near zero. So that can allow every tenant to get kind of the same access to the property and have a chance to actually rent the property, not just being the fastest one, but actually be the best offer or be the best profile or whatever kind of how the landlord makes a decision. So it kind of creates an equal opportunity for tenants to participate in the process. And it creates an amazing additional value for the landlord because we process not just like 10, 15 applicants, but we process like hundreds of applicants really kind of till the very end so that they can choose whoever kind of they want as a landlord and they have a better tenant or a better price or whatever. Because when you have a choice, when you have a competition, it kind of obviously provides a better outcome for the landlord with nearly kind of zero cost for us to process that pipeline, while the agent, instead of doing the admin kind of stuff, actually focuses on proper verification if the tenant has kind of, I don't know, the referencing bit kind of agent obviously overlooking the process. Agent just verifies the actual interest because we cannot trust AI that they spoke with particular kind of tenant and verify that tenant is like, I don't know, legit and actually saying whatever reasonable kind of reasons why they want to be kind of in that property. AI just like not good yet at that. So agent focuses on like top 10 applicants, still kind of calling them whatever, but they're kind of talking to much kind of better tenants on average because they're already pre-verified by AI and processed kind of, and we get this 10 kind of best tenants from much broader basically subsample than a traditional model the agent would kind of get. So I mean, good
Yeah.
example, better
Yeah.
outcome for tenants, better outcome for landlords, and still kind of agent in charge of the end result.
Right, right. So, just to kind of put it in a more kind of concrete way, so is there like an AI chatbot that potential the tenants
Yeah,
are interacting with,
yeah,
and
yeah.
is this also over the phone or is this just over email or like a chatbot kind of UI or cross-sell?
We will introduce the phone one, but for now, whenever kind of tenant calls the property, we just send them a link how to join the chat with kind of
Mm-hmm.
yeah, basically with the bot and go through the process up kind of till they basically signing the tenancy agreement. And that helped us to reduce the time to find the tenant basically by around 30%. And we
Wow.
kind of on average kind of in a traditional agency, agents usually kind of get to 1 to 2 offers per property and then they just sign the agreement. In our case, on average, we get 10 validated offers pretty much within the first like 3 to 5 days. So that's the magnitude of change.
And do those offers tend to be like higher because it's there's more applicants, or is the price already set?
UK market is going through the kind of legislative change and traditional kind of bidding will not be allowed from 1st of May. But short answer is before that change, it was the case. Yes, we had the bidding mechanism and on average tenant were kind of offering 5% more.
I mean, so okay, so tenants are offering 5% more on average.
Yeah,
So the landlords are happy, and I'm
yeah.
guessing the fee to the agents are higher, right? I'm
By
just
this
guessing.
5% basically, yeah.
Yeah. Um, And then the agents also save costs because it's 30% you said, or 10 days faster, or sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
10 days faster, basically 30% instead of like around 3 to 4 weeks. It was like under 2 weeks, basically, the time to let.
Yeah, and does that mean it frees up the agents to, I guess, do more look at more properties or
It first kind of actually increases the ROI of landlord because the void period for the property reduces and
Mm.
the occupancy is higher, which is obviously in the long term kind of rentals, not that dramatical improvement, but still kind of an important one anyway. And agent depends how you structure the work, but you can basically indeed kind of serve a larger portfolio with the same team because kind of the other part of the team actually spends more time kind of growing the landlord base. But yeah.
Okay. So that's on the, I guess, initial kind of renting out stage. What
Yeah.
about during, I guess, under management? What are some good
Under management, I think the logic is pretty much the same as kind of property management in the UK is effectively a communication process. So whenever there are two types of maintenance, the proactive and reactive. Proactive is when you have to renew gas kind of certificate to be compliant or electricity certificate, etc. And the reactive is whenever tenant reports some kind of tap leak or what's not. And on the reactive kind of property management, we reduced the resolution time by 30% basically already. The average resolution time of a maintenance request from the tenant, you'll be surprised. Can you make a guess? What's the average resolution time for the property? Like you have a tap leaking. What would be the average resolution time in the UK for that to get sorted?
Well, I don't know about you, the UK, but as a very impatient American, I would say if my pipe breaks and somebody doesn't come in a day, I'd be very, very disappointed.
The pipe breaks, maybe kind of it's an urgent request when kind of there is
Yeah.
potential damage to the property, but let's say something just not working, but there is no immediate danger to the property.
Yeah,
Well,
well, I'd probably give like 2, 3 days maximum.
mhm. 52 days, the average
52
resolution
days.
time in
Okay.
the 52 days, yes. And for us, kind of it's already well beyond basically a month, and we aim to get down to like 10 days basically.
Wow, that's crazy. 52
And that's
days is
about
almost
just increasing the speed of communication because kind
right.
of you have the full visibility of what's going on between tenants, maintenance providers, within the office, and you can just follow up automatically and nudge kind of maintenance providers, switch between them if kind of they're not responding, whatever. Is just next level how you deal with the property management.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, those are really concrete examples, I think, of how AI can kind of facilitate the communication and therefore create value for everyone involved. What about like from a financial sense? Like, you don't have to give us an exact number, but like a range of like, hey, this is what a typical lettings or a property management agency margins look like in the UK. And then with AI, you could even get to X, Y, and Z. Like, just give us a flavor of the financial impact of all this.
Yeah, I think what we see is I think the true answer is that we yet to see the end kind of target state of it because we believe that AI rollups are much more than because everybody is asking in every acquisition that we make. The first question is like, okay, are we out of the job because AI gonna replace us kind of agents? And this is kind of also a common misconception because yes, you theoretically can do that, but you can do much better job with actually elevating your teams and kind of hunting for the landlords kind of on the same market because now you provide 10x better service. So we kind of focused more kind of on that. That's why kind of our margin expansion is not kind of dramatical because there is no goal kind of for that. We want kind of to set this business as an upward trajectory to actually eventually win pretty much majority of the market. But in terms of efficiency, kind of as I said, some processes are kind of 10 times more efficient. Some processes are like 3 times more efficient in terms of like human hours. But we just like invest human hours into kind of additional, basically elevation of the service to completely stood out from the market. But if you kind of be aggressive, yes, you can kind of increase margins quite dramatically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so this is something that I've spoken with some other people, which is yes, you can realize the margins, but you can also just reinvest that into growth, which is I think what kind of where you're headed.
That
And
makes much more sense because people are kind of still an asset in the business, as I alluded kind of in the very beginning. those are amazing people trying to actually do an amazing service. And when we see that the intention is very right, when we see how actually happy they are, spending more time with the client, spending more time out there, out of the office, actually pitching to new landlords that the service now is great, and I'll be kind of spending time with you, blah, 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 reporting to you, and you will have kind of the feeling that you are kind of taking special care of because kind of I'm here while kind of AI is helping me. That when you see that, you want to rather leverage that than be just like
Yeah.
a financial kind of exercise.
Right, because I mean, in some ways, like the agents are the revenue generating assets of the
Cool.
company. I don't know if you guys keep track of this KPI, but I'll be curious to hear either this or similar KPI, which is like what's been the average revenue per agency or agent before and after.
Honestly speaking, as right now, kind of it's not kind of the North Star metric for us because kind of the North Star metric for us is to make sure the infrastructure is there because I think it's very kind of early to judge kind of where organic growth in this space is very kind of slow anyway. Average agency would be kind of flat-ish in terms of the portfolio size. An amazing agency would be growing like 20 or 30% kind of year. It's going to be an amazing agency. The very good agency is like 5 to 10%. So it's still kind of not, agency cannot grow exponentially. So the investment into the level of service compounds kind of over time. But what we actually track first kind of is what the efficiency gain that we're actually closing with AI, how much time we free up to actually invest into this kind of additional activities, and then we see how this additional activities actually pays out through the kind of investment into the relationship and into the kind of sales activities. So too early to judge in terms of just like how the revenue per employee grew, like
Right.
10%, 15%, that's probably the answer right now. But we believe it can be much more.
I mean, look, I think being able to drive double-digit organic growth in what I consider like, like it's not like there are that many properties, like, new properties. So I'm guessing it's like a single-digit industry growth that, you guys are outperforming, which is why I'm guessing you guys are much more focused on capturing that additional growth, and outgrowing the market.
Sorry, just to add on that, I think for us, what we believe in is that the first is the outstanding service that we deliver. So kind of for the time being, we focus more on enhancing the product, enhancing the operating model to make sure that landlords are indeed like extremely happy because we believe that this is the fundament to kind of to what comes next.
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe then I don't know if you keep track of the NPS score of either the landlords or the tenants. Did you see any impacts across kind of, I guess, satisfaction levels?
Yeah. There are kind of it's an interesting angle actually on the NPS. On the landlord and on the tenant side, kind of. On the tenant side, the NPS, hard to say kind of is it increasing or not because most of the tenants are not being kind of able to actually speak with the agent in a traditional model because nobody picks up the phone or they cannot arrange a viewing and nobody then asks like, what's your opinion, basically, right? In our case, we don't get kind of many complaints. So out of 500 tenants moving into the property, only one has any basically complaints through the process. And out of those who are being rejected, we don't see again kind of complaints. People just say, oh, I don't kind of like that property was let to someone else, etc. But it's definitely above kind of 80, the NPS on the tenant. On the landlords, you'll be kind of surprised that our view is at this stage slightly kind of different and a bit conservative, I would say, at the first kind of stage of the company. We try kind of to implement changes that are not yet extremely visible kind of to the landlord. Yes, you are getting kind of a higher rent at the end of the day because of the process, but you don't feel as a landlord that you interact with the AI because actually we do not interact with landlords with AI because interaction with landlords is just tiny fraction in terms of all the hours of communications that agents are doing. So it's not the most important kind of efficiency gain. We still kind of provide a very kind of human-centric support to landlords because these relationships are very kind of human to human. And landlords, they notice positive change. On average, kind of agency NPS, and we measure NPS right after the acquisition. I would say the average NPS to my surprise, actually quite high, is around, I think, 55, 60, with some agencies being kind of above that, being above 70. After kind of 6 years, 6 months, kind of after we managed it, adds like 5 to 10 points, which is still good, but we try to kind of preserve the same interaction with the landlord as it was pre-acquisition, because why to change? We need to kind of show over the long term, because these are relationships like 10 years plus long. You don't need to just like impress them immediately today, because this is the biggest source of wealth for our clients. This is the biggest kind of asset that they have. They don't want like hustle. They don't want like fast changes. They want confidence that everything going to be okay. And you gradually show them that things are getting better. So that's kind of different approach to tenants and landlords in terms of measuring
Yeah,
the NPS.
I mean, I think it's still 5 to 10 points within 6 months
Yeah.
is pretty meaningful improvement. And maybe I asked the wrong question. As I think about this more, the customer of the AI is
Hmm.
actually the agents, it sounds like. So like maybe it's a satisfaction of the agents that we should talk a little bit more about. Or like, why don't we start there? And I think I'd love to maybe talk about some of the organizational, cultural kind of change management aspects that I'm sure is impactful in this conversation. But like how are the agents reacting to AI?
I think an honest answer will be is that depends on the stage where kind of the particular agency is in terms of the kind of journey within Valley. Obviously, immediate reaction is a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of like skepticism, because they don't know what's going to happen, right? It's like period of uncertainty. They've been recently acquired by some company that deploys AI. What does it mean, et cetera, et cetera. So initial reaction is obviously as any human being would react. Like, what's going on? I'm scared. Like, tell me more. And I've been kind of in their shoes as well when Uber decided to merge business with a local competitor. Uber was kind of effectively the minority shareholder in the joint venture and sort of kind of selling in a selling position. We as a team were quite shocked, and we needed like around a month to just get around the whole news and understand what actually it means for everybody. The same happens with agents, just because it's the nature of any M&A transaction. And here, kind of, we need to provide them confidence that actually the job is secure, that now we're going to kind of train them how to work with a new system, that they actually will deliver the better service. We need to show them the path actually from this kind of anxiety that they have that AI will replace them to the moment where actually AI will just enhance them in some ways, or in some ways actually do the job for them, while they actually can focus on what's much more important. And that's the journey, basically. We got people consistently from here to here, but it takes time. That's why we have kind of an integrations team fully focused uh, on that transition.
Yeah, I mean, we should definitely talk about integration because I think to your point, you're kind of shocking the system twice, right? With M&A and with AI. So maybe starting with the acquisition phase. Like, what is your acquisition playbook? How do you evaluate whether an agency is ready for the Dwelly model, or not?
Yeah, I think we deeply believe that any agency, in principle, is ready to be kind of on that value platform one way or another. The question is, what is the like, where is the best fit? Because we are yet early in our journey, and we want to kind of make sure that our kind of integration goes as seamless as possible. So there are kind of some business criteria. For example, we focus only on businesses that are predominantly in the letting space, because in the UK, every agency does a little bit of lettings, a little bit of sales, a little bit of block management, a little bit of that, and that, like financial advice, etc. We buy businesses that predominantly have the revenue from lettings side of the business, and not kind of heavily involved in all the adjacent areas, because we don't build the product kind of for that. We're not that interested in the other sides of the business. So it's like lettings focused businesses. It's businesses with high degree of diversification in terms of landlords. There should be kind of quite a fragmented customer base. We are not kind of buying businesses where, let's say, half of the portfolio is one client, just because of the just fundamental kind of risk to that business. If that client goes, you basically lost half of the value. We're not kind of buying that yet at this stage. And there are other kind of business criteria. But what's more important, given how kind of the nature of the work is changing into kind of being more relationship driven with customers, less just administrators of the process, we are buying businesses with super strong succession. We are buying business, usually seller sells because of the retirement. This is the typical deal kind of here in the UK. Seller spent 20, 30 years building the agency and pretty much approach the retirement age and sells the business. We only buy businesses where there is a strong succession, where there's a strong number two in place who will be called managing director of that business after the acquisition and can lead the team through that kind of transition and to help them kind of to start doing more client-facing work, more kind of getting new landlords, more kind of providing value to the existing ones instead of just like, okay, let's chase for the gas certificate. Where is that?
Yeah. So I think I'm starting to kind of grasp the pitch, which is it sounds like, hey, let us kind of enable you to deepen your relationship with your
Pretty much.
customers and kind of save time and have more customers. Okay. What about like what does integration look like in the first 90 months, first 90 days? I'd be curious to hear how it compares to typical, private equity roll-up integration playbooks now that, you have to think about AI.
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised. I think to a significant extent, actually, the playbook itself has pretty much kind of the same chapters, give or take. The question is like where you put more effort into, right? I think as in any acquisition, you have this like due diligence stage, the origination stage, but let's talk about the integration. So you start the preparation of the integration sometime before the deal completion, obviously, depending on the size, depending on the amount of work you need to kind of invest into preparation. We do the same because it is the same process. There is still kind of an announcement on day one. There is still kind of team there. You still need to understand kind of what the business is and actually how to plan the integration, etc. So you do the preparation, you prepare for the announcement day, and for us, it's super important to actually make sure the team feels welcomed to the Dwelly family, that we are not here to just do the traditional kind of in our space private equity game where kind of in a few months after the acquisition, no brand, no office, basically, no senior management usually. Everybody put in one place and that's it. It's like cost out play, right? We feel them welcome to the team. We say that we want to build kind of on top of your basically already solid ground that kind of you build here a solid brand, well recognized in the area, etc. And tell them more about kind of what's going next. And for the first month, we are just here sitting and kind of answering questions pretty much for in terms of the interaction with the team. But in the background, we obviously do everything that traditional PE roll-up would be doing, kind of taking control of the bank accounts and like migrating the finance kind of system, integrating into ours, migrating HR system, everything that clients don't see, everything that employees don't see, but you just like do the back office effectively integration. We focus on that. We obviously focus on the process mapping because it's very important then to sit with the team and to understand, okay, this is our kind of operating model post kind of integration, how we see things. We believe that it works kind of quite well, but we also believe that you might bring something new to how we see kind of the industry because we are still yet early in our journey, and we believe that this kind of every integration brings kind of additional knowledge to us and brings additional perspective to you. So that's why we sit with the team, and our integrations manager goes through each process that the team is doing, sees like what is the equivalent in our operating model, how it matches. If kind of we don't have anything, then we have a question, okay, do we need to actually build this kind of process or like function, because actually that makes sense, and for whatever reason the previous like 5 agencies that we integrated just didn't do that, but actually it makes sense and we need to start doing that, and then we build additional feature. Or somewhere where kind of, let's say, as people joke, in the UK there are 10,000 kind of letting agents and there are 20,000 ways of doing the same business. So obviously kind of sometimes they do kind of something, but we have an equivalent of that, just we do that differently, right? And we say, look, we have the same results, kind of we have the same outcome, you just do it differently, but kind of for the sake of speed and everything, let's kind of make sure that you now become kind of more aligned with how we kind of operate. So we do the process mapping, we go with the team openly, like that's going to look like this, or actually that makes sense, etc., so that by the time we actually do the process, like the system rollout, everybody is aligned about like how the system works, what is the expectation from there, kind of day to day, etc. Then we migrate data, also standard part of the kind of the M&A, right? You need to migrate the tech systems, etc., and then kind of launch operations on the new system and make sure the continuity. So all that is very standard. But for us, the people element, the alignment with the team in terms of what the future looks like kind of after the integration is much more important than in traditional PE rollup, because in traditional PE rollup, the how the service is being delivered is not changing. It's pretty much kind of the same operations, maybe on a different CRM or what's not, but in principle, it is the same. So kind of team is more prepared for the kind of PE style kind of integration rather for what kind of we are doing. We need to kind of get everybody up to speed, aligned, and kind of fully committed to actually live in the new environment.
Yeah. I mean,
And we over invest there, obviously. Yeah.
right, right. I mean, I just always think like roll-ups in general, especially like in a super fragmented market where there's a lot of kind of, small mom and pop shops. Like change management is just so critical, and I'm guessing it's even more complex with AI involved in it. So I'd love to maybe just hear more about like any concrete learnings. So for example, like how quickly do you push AI to the new targets, right? Did that change? Like, did you try to do it in the first 30 days and you realize, oh, they need more time, so you changed to, more like 90-day plan? And then secondly, is this like a push model where you tell everyone, hey, you have to do this, or you kind of let them pull in certain processes to kind of get warmed up and then, roll everything out later. So how did that all evolve?
Yeah, I think as we're still kind of quite early in our journey, we are not in the complete kind of push model saying we know how to operate. We just like get ready to do this kind of to do this in 90 days and that's it kind of we don't have a discussion. I think for us it's still super important to learn on every new kind of acquisition and integration if we are kind of missing or not kind of something that is important for the clients and still to enhance our operating framework. So that's why for us, the KPI is not the timeline. The KPI is the alignment with the team, and it depends on the size of the business. So we recently acquired the business with like 11 branches, with almost 80 people on the team, with multi-layered management structure, and the approach is different there. We are learning on that business. We are learning together. We're kind of enhancing our operating model. We are kind of aligning with them. We don't have like a definitive timeline by what date we need to integrate them, because what we actually need to achieve is we need to achieve the successful integration, not the integration by time. We need to make sure that all landlords stay and actually kind of the portfolio is growing post-integration. On the smaller integrations, I think we are getting to the pace of integrating the business within the first kind of 3 to 4 months, I would say, because kind of it is sort of kind of playbooked to significant extent, and this like 3 4 months already kind of enough to get team up to speed. And in small businesses, the processes are already kind of more or less known to us, but we still kind of keep our mind open to some new findings. So yeah, this is kind of this is the timeline. This is how we look at things. Alignment with the team is much more important than the timeline, though I mentioned the average timelines. In the PE roll-ups in our space, I would say integration happens faster. They usually do kind of it within pretty much, they have like 100 days plan, but by the end of 100 days, it's already like done completely. Usually most of the activities are done within the first months, basically. The rest is just sort of a cleanup and whatever, but the kind of the intense period of the integration is a month. I recently had the agency sold kind of in my neighborhood, and I know that they are sold because kind of we are seeing the pipeline as a kind of as an industry player as well. The office was gone pretty much within 3 weeks, like literally gone, no office, 3 weeks. I mean, we don't have intention like that because we are building on top of the existing brands, because we leverage the kind of the heritage of these teams. They invested into that brand. Landlords value that brand, and with AI for us, maintaining kind of tens, if not hundreds of brands is easy. We don't need kind of to consolidate brands. For us, Dwelly is like a technology behind kind of that. But in every particular kind of community, in every particular geography, brands that, I mean, they matter. And we can maintain them as simple as kind of maintaining one brand. Like, why to change, actually?
It is really interesting that despite kind of both models using roll up as a strategy, right? What enable AI, or I guess technology broadly enables in terms of the operating models, there is a difference, I think. As we kind of roll forward 5 years, 10 years, I do think that, the end state of, AI enabled models will look different from traditional PE models, is kind of what I'm gathering here. Um, We'd love to maybe just
I,
kind of, oh, go
uh-huh.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think kind of you're exactly right. It's just the nature of value creation is different. For PE roll-ups, the value creation comes with efficiency of scale, one way or another, right? With kind of AI-enabled roll-ups, efficiency comes from just different way of delivering the service. That's it. That's why we don't need the platform itself. The first acquisition was a small agency with just like 1.5 million, slightly less even, pounds in revenue. was just like 13, 14 people in the team, and we were able to show kind of the efficiency increase. And even kind of in that case, we showed the EBITDA increase. I think on the first agency, we grew, I think, from around 12% to slightly above 40%, and to kind of address kind of the question how it's done. Obviously, in this industry, people proactively kind of, not proactive, people, let me phrase it kind of in the right way. In the letting space, in the property management, the entry kind of barrier to the industry is pretty much kind of minimal. Everyone can try to become a letting agent, and a lot of people do try it because kind of it's an amazing opportunity to kind of to start the professional career. But because of the entry barrier is kind of is that low, a lot of people actually make a decision that probably it's not for them, or they want something else, et cetera, et cetera. And on the industry level, around 30% of employees actually decide to go kind of to the different industry or kind of elsewhere. The attrition of employees is quite high, and then kind of we have a choice like what basically to do. In the first agency, several employees left, but we just decided to see kind of where the system can get to. But now we are kind of getting people back to actually continue kind of pushing the relationship, pushing kind of the growth of the agency, but above basically market kind of norms. But you can get there. If some people leave, you don't replace them, but that's not the objective, because kind of you're changing how the market operates. You're not just extracting cost. It's like not the objective of a company.
I mean, that is incredible, right? Like the 12 to 40%, which, I'm sure it's a little stretch, but that's like that signifies just like being able to do more or being able to do the same with less, right?
You
That's
can do same with less, but the secret sauce is that you can do much more with the same that we
right.
kind of believe will compound over time. Theoretically, you can, so it's not just like a bluff. You can do that, but that's not an objective, because uh, what we are trying to build, kind of, we are trying to build an operating system for the whole market. We are not trying to consolidate kind of 2% market share across the whole country as private equity roll-ups are doing. The biggest PE roll-up here is, I don't know, 3-4% market share, and that's it. They're already kind of $1 billion size company, right? But it's not the outcome we want. We want to become kind of a technology and operational layer kind of for the whole market. That's why kind of for us, the kind of the short-term gains in terms of, oh, we show the EBITDA uplift and let's get kind of 10x multiple on the EBITDA. It's just not an objective. The objective is like we can actually build a $50 billion business just in the UK. Across the whole Europe, it can be like $200+ billion business. And that's what we're building. That's why we overinvest into team. We are happy to kind of upskill everyone and actually join this kind of new world kind of with us.
Yeah.
Kind of quite a significant difference in the mindset between kind of us and peer rollups. That's why, to be honest, I think you touched that kind of in your article, but I think traditional PE approach kind of in the service industries, especially kind of in our space, I mean, it's questionable already, and we see kind of that the kind of I would say interest of PEs to invest into existing kind of leading players, well, significantly dropped. I will not kind of tell names or like whatever, obviously, for clear reasons, but we see that PE funds already like, oh, but what happens? And if Dwelly raises another like few hundreds of millions, or what if like Dwelly raises $500 million, what happens with the whole industry? Traditional kind of buy a platform, consolidate a little bit, like leverage with that and sell to another one kind of a next kind of tier PE. Well, the risks are much higher than they were kind of previously.
Yeah, like disruption is real and is happening
Yeah.
very quickly. Um, I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit in the pre-call, which is what comes at the end of all this. And I think this kind of ties back to your desire to scale quickly and become a dominant player, right? Like, so AI, right? It's people can figure it out eventually, right? I think you
Yeah.
guys started early. Like what is ultimately like the end state in your mind of AI enabled, I guess, roll-ups of letting agencies or property managers?
Yeah, I think eventually we want to build, as we wanted to build in the previous kind of business that we sold, an end-to-end transactional marketplace. We want to facilitate every transaction between landlord and tenant, whether we are kind of owning an agency, whether we are helping another agency to facilitate that transaction, whatever. So we are building a marketplace that hopefully will help to kind of facilitate transactions to the majority of the market. For now, we are getting there through kind of AI-enabled rollup, but the kind of the thing that we are building is much, much bigger than that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I hear marketplace, I hear like network and data
Yes.
as a moat, which is something that came up in other conversations with other AI founders. But so I guess you're kind of building a marketplace through a AI roll-up strategy to get to enough scale.
We are trying to get there. Let's see if we are successful, but that's an obvious kind of continuation. I think there are kind of, it's not a secret. It's not that I'm revealing kind of some secret sauce. There's an amazing company in China called Baker. They started, it was kind of effectively a pivot of the traditional, just a big agency. And they built basically a transactional marketplace on top of them and started kind of working with other agencies, et cetera, et cetera. And they are third biggest kind of effectively platform right now, kind of in China, publicly traded company on New York Stock Exchange. I think the EBITDA multiple is around 30 or 38 or something like that. So yes, I mean, we want to get kind of somewhere there, and the inspiration of the business is exactly kind of in business like that, or Quinta and Dar in Brazil, that are also kind of getting starting as an agency, but then trying to grow into kind of end-to-end marketplace, effectively covering the full transaction for the landlord and tenant.
Yeah. Now that I know the bigger term, I guess longer term ambitions, I could see why the VC guys are excited to, be supportive.
For us, rollup is just a cold start problem, I would say, in technical worlds. We just need like to solve the chicken and egg problem. We just need to get to some certain scale to actually show that the service is different, that the model is different, and everything. Yeah.
I would love to get your perspectives on what you think are the right industries where this model would work, and then other industries where it wouldn't work. Because I, frankly, get approached by so many people exploring AI roll-ups across
Yeah.
so many industries, and I can't really decide what's good or what's bad. Like, I don't have a good framework to think about
Yeah.
that. So, like, how would you encourage people to like test their thesis with this AI strategy?
No, I think it's an amazing question, which I kind of think about quite regularly, I would say. Uh, because obviously applying AI is not kind of it's not like a rocket science. Rocket science is to build kind of the fundamental models, but applying it is like much kind of easier exercise, obviously. And you should be naive believing that other people will not be kind of applying that in your space, in your country, or kind of in other countries. The question is, how you prevent then further fees deterioration and margins kind of deterioration through just direct competition. When everybody applies AI, they now have a huge margins. Let's reinvest in marketing and then basically kill all the margins, right? Or reduce prices or like whatever. That kind of naturally can happen. The question is how to prevent that. And I think good old kind of macroeconomics, we should kind of get back to that and see what modes are there in the real kind of physical world as well as kind of in brand, in distribution, and so on. Yes, kind of some things became much easier, particular kind of transactions became automated or what's not, and you gain efficiency there, but you still kind of have there are different modes, right? It can be brand, which is less kind of relevant to us. It can be network effects, which is more relevant to us on different layers, including kind of offline network effects, because our operations are in the physical world as well. You need plumbers, you need network of local contractors, local kind of partners who actually do fix things. And as you kind of scale, that gets kind of your internal task rabbit becomes kind of much more efficient, right? And that defends kind of you from kind of smaller competitors as well. So that helps. The distribution to landlord helps because landlords are very kind of sticky. They don't want to kind of change from one agency to another. So there are kind of multiple layers of modes in our space. And I think that it is super important whenever you try to kind of follow the same strategy somewhere else in different industry to think through kind of, okay, what's your end kind of end mode, how you sustain margins, how you basically stay as a tech company, not just like enjoy the short-term results, but actually keep them a long-term profits. And you have to get back to fundamental kind of reasons.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I think at least from this conversation, it's clear to me that there's a network effect to this that you're building towards. Congrats to what you built to date. So let's do the rapid fire questions. This is just for fun, by the way. Like just whatever comes to mind. So first question is a book, podcast, or resource that you would recommend to the readers about scaling AI enabled operations?
Well, well, I think this is kind of directly kind of advice on scaling AI-enabled operations. Too early. I mean, not so many books are written about that because actually we just like experiment with that as we speak, kind of we and kind of other players. But I think the book that actually helped me, especially to kind of lead the transformation of the agencies we acquire with a human face and with a really kind of open heart is a very famous kind of book, Culture Map, because I'm an immigrant in the UK, and for me, kind of it's building the business in a new country and actually quite transformative business as well. So multiple layers of like potential cultural gaps in between me and basically people around me. And I think Culture Map helped me a lot to actually just build my own kind of internal framework, how to stay with an open heart and not kind of be judging people first, but actually be curious about, like, hey, they just see the world differently, like from because of the different culture, because of the different kind of background, because of like whatever. And I think in a highly acquisitive environment, that actually trait helps a lot because every company is different and you should be like really open-hearted about kind of whom you welcome on the team and like how to integrate them. Yeah.
No, I love that recommendation. Second question is most overrated startup advice.
Most overrated startup advice probably kind of for me is about um, you guys need to focus kind of on building MVP and don't focus on something else. But the biggest question is like, okay, what to focus on still, right? Because everybody believes that this is MVP, but it's very hard, especially kind of when you don't have a product market fit to figure out what to spend time on. That's why I'm so excited that we don't have a product market fit problem. We are just like elevating the existing industry with existing demand, with existing supply. We don't have this problem.
You skipped the 0 to 1, which was exactly what I was trying to do with, just pursuing an ETA path, but here I am being an entrepreneur trying to create a 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Last question. If you had to start Dwelly again, what would you do differently?
I would probably kind of save time on what's kind of not a part of the public story is that when we were fundraising, the initial ambition was, okay, let's buy kind of a bigger agency kind of straight away because it's like a mature company and we'll bring innovation there, etc. We were trying to raise quite a significant kind of capital around like 20, 30 million pounds to buy kind of mid-sized target with like few hundreds of people and what's not. Thanks God we didn't get money kind of to do that. And we ended up buying a smaller agency and then kind of buying more and more and more. And we actually could master our operating framework that way. But the kind of I would probably save time on that because right now after kind of going through the journey that we went through, I deeply kind of believe, at least for our business model in the UK, in our industry, not here to say that it's kind of a unified framework, but for us, for Dwelly, it was very right actually that we started with a small agency. We built a product on them. We moved actually 3 hours away from London by train for 15 months to sit in the office with the team and to make sure that actually product fits the purpose. Because what happens next on the integration is you need to focus on people element and you have less time to actually kind of and less cooperation to just like experiment, right? So we had a privilege of like having a very aligned team to experiment with the approach and to figure out what actually works before we went into scaling. And that worked well for us, but we spent some time trying to approach it differently. I'm glad that it didn't happen back then, to be honest. We would probably run into big problems trying to transform like several hundreds strong kind of teams straight away without kind of a good understanding what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that's a really helpful insight. Yeah. It would have been a lot of work to acquire something big and try to, implement change and experiment. So
We
that's
were not
great.
ready for that.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. I think that's a wrap. So thank you, Iliad, for taking your time. This was a really phenomenal conversation. Honestly, very, very insightful, and glad that I'm able to kind of talk to you who's been in this for, I guess, almost 3 years now. Um, and I really appreciate the time.
And then thank you very much. Thank you for hosting. Really enjoyed the chat.